this year, $271 million back in your pocket. The House of Delegates passed that plan in one day, in July. Unfortunately, our West Virginia State Senate, the other side of the Capitol building, wouldn't even vote on the governor's plan to immediately start the phase out of the state income tax. Instead, the state Senate has put on the ballot for November 8th, 3 weeks from today, Amendment 2. Now, a little constitutional history here. In November of 1932, the people of West Virginia amended our Constitution, and they placed in the Constitution a guarantee that the property taxes that we pay, and we all pay them, personal and real, stays with local government. That's in the West Virginia Constitution. It's been there for 90 years. So what are we talking about when we talk about local government? We're talking about county government, like this courthouse, and everything that goes with county government, EMS, first responders. We're talking about our school boards, and we're talking about our cities. That's about, statewide, that's about $500 million that stays right local where it came from. Amendment 2, however, wants to change the Constitution, and it's going to be voted on here 3 weeks from today. Amendment 2 says the legislature is going to take over the decision making on where the property tax dollars are going to go. The legislature is going to gather up those dollars, and then the legislature, every year in the state budget, forevermore, is going to budget those dollars back to all the cities and counties. Now, let's don't be naive here. We're in good times right now. But we're talking about forever. The West Virginia legislature, every legislature that comes from this day for the next 100 years, every governor that comes behind this governor for the next 100 years, we're going to ask those legislators to budget our money back to us, which means effectively the counties and the cities and the school boards, we become wards of the state of West Virginia.
Oh, well, that's feudalism.
So you're going to go down there with your hat in your hand.
It is.
Instead of having your guaranteed constitutional revenue, you're going to go down there with your hat in your hand every year and say, please, legislature, will you please budget our money back? That's what Amendment 2 has the potential to do. Now, I'll let you decide. I'll look across this room. I don't see anybody in here that looks like they were born yesterday. I'll let you decide which is better for local government. Which is better, to send all your money to Charleston and then every year ask to get it back and compete with the state of West Virginia's expenses, which include, among other things, Medicaid, PEIA, jail bills, all the expenses that the state of West Virginia has? Or would you rather keep your dollars guaranteed to stay here in the community from which they came from in our Constitution? So that's all I've got to say about that in the words of Forrest Gump. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the man that took West Virginia from $700 million in the hole to $1.3 billion in the plus in 5 years, the 36th governor of the state of West Virginia, the Honorable Jim Justice.
Great job.
Bless your heart. All right, I'm going to be more direct, and I won't take up forever of your time. First of all, thanks for all of you coming. I know it's hot in here. I'll tell you the honest truth, though. It can't be as hot as the road from Marlington to here, because we have scalded the road coming up the road. You know, it's one of the great perks of being the governor. You can follow behind the police, and they're flying and everything. But no, I'll tell you the honest truth about this whole thing. You may ask yourself, well, why in the world is the governor out doing this? I mean, what's this really all about? You know, and the bottom line to the whole thing is just one thing. This seemed so benign, so innocent, you know. let's pass a resolution in the House and the Senate. And basically the resolution is going to say that the House and the Senate, basically we're going to have a vote, and we're going to let the people vote to allow the legislature to change the rules of the game, to change how we can structure taxes, or where they flow, and all that bit. Now, it seemed really innocent. And then what happened, unbeknownst to me, but for a year and a half, the Senate was traveling around all over the place, meeting with county commissions and school boards and everything else under the sun, and they never asked me to the party. Never. Not one time. And basically, they were promising the moon and saying, here's what the numbers are, and you're going to get this, and we're going to give more to the schools and more to the counties and more and more and more. And then I came out and said, if you'll remember back in July, let's do a 10% personal income tax cut. And the House agreed to it in a day, and I thought the Senate would agree to it in a day. I thought, surely to God above, Republicans, of all people, can't not be for a tax cut. There's no way. And at the time, gasoline prices were racing like crazy, and prices in the grocery store, we all know what's going on. Inflation's eating every one of y'all up. It is. I guarantee it is. So I thought, well, the decent thing of all things to do is put money back in your pocket tomorrow. Okay, now maybe we can't totally eliminate the income tax tomorrow, but we can do 10%, it's $254 million. Under the ARPA guidelines and all that kind of stuff, right, we did it to the max we could possibly do it. And we did it. Boom. And the House agreed, and then all of a sudden it just stopped. Well, I would have never thunk it. Nobody would. I mean, nobody could figure it out. Well, what on God's earth is happening here? Well, the net of the whole thing, what happened is just this. You see, D.C., Washington, D.C., you watch it all the time. We always talk about the swamp in Washington. Well, there is a terrible swamp there, and what goes on nonstop is this. Special interest lobbyists approach the elected officials, and they promise everything under the sun. And then they buy their vote. And then really what happens is it's not coming from the special interest lobbyist, it's coming from some special interest group. Sierra Club, big business, whatever. It's coming from somebody. They're the ones that want their vote. And the reason they want their vote is so they can get something. Now that's what happens. That's the definition of the swamp. That's what happens all the time. Well, so really what's happening in Charleston? Exactly the same thing. You've got special interest, the lobbyists, that are representing the manufacturers or the chamber or big business, big out-of-state business. They're going, the lobbyists are hired by them. They're going to the legislatures and saying, we'll support your next campaign for whatever office it may be, or we'll do this or that and everything. There's perks running around all over the place. And before you know it, then we get on this mission to pass the machinery and inventory tax. And then the next thing that comes right with it is, well, first of all, we got to get Amendment 2 on the ballot. To get the machinery and inventory tax, we got to get Amendment 2 on the ballot. Because really all we're really after is, and not me, but all we're really, really after is to get rid of the machinery and inventory tax. Now just stay with me a second, okay? Now in that, the next idea that comes up is probably a pretty clever idea. Tell you what we'll do. We'll get rid of your car tax with this, and you will vote for it. We'll basically buy your vote, and we don't give a hoot about the car tax, but we'll get your vote for Amendment 2, and then we'll get to do anything we want to do. Now that's exactly what happened. And I promise you this, I may come up and make a bunch of mistakes, but I'll never tell you something that knowingly I know is not the truth. Now there's no way. So, what's the repercussion then? And here's the repercussion. You have an income stream that's flowing to your counties right now. If you pass Amendment 2, all bets are off. And then what happens is, instead of local control, it goes to Charleston control. Everything will be fine in life unless there's a bump in the road. And you can bet in every single way there is, there'll be a bump in the road. And when there's a bump in the road, then all you know what's going to be to pay. Because what's going to happen then is we're going to be short on dollars. And if we're short on dollars, then we're not going to be able to fund the counties to the level that you have a guaranteed income stream today. That's the risk. There's no guarantee that can happen, but if you believe there's not going to be a bump, there's not ever going to be a bump, then Babydog has got oceanfront property in Kansas, and she'll sell it to you. Now the other thing that'll happen is just this, and you know, I thank Mark Maynard for coming. Or Mark Manchin rather for coming. You know, and Ike and Mike and everybody else is here. You know, but and Robert, Jiminy, Senator Carnes. We've been through this 50,000 times. But nevertheless, you know, you just think about what happens if dupe happens. Now, you know, I don't know if I've still got this. This just came out today. And this is the Wall Street Journal saying economists, now expect a recession, job losses by next year. Well, what happens if that happens? What happens if we just factor in that we're going to have all this income that's going to come? What happens if dupe happens? Well, it ain't good. Now, let me just throw out another scenario. And it could happen, it could be happening right now. What happens, we all know that Putin running Russia is really dangerous. What happens if we go out here and turn the radio on and there's been a tactical nuclear weapon go off in Ukraine? What happens? The stock market will go to 9,000. Boom. Guarantee it'll go to 9,000. Boom. Just like that. When that happens, absolutely we'll be so upside down we won't even know what our name is. But then what will happen is the rainy day fund will not be able to maintain itself. We'll have to put money in the rainy day fund. Dupe will happen. It happens in your houses. It happens everywhere. Honest to goodness, you can never anticipate everything's going to be one way. So, you know, if that happens, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with PEI? What are you going to do with pay raises? The very thing, and Mark knows this, I'll promise you to God above, Robert knows this. But absolutely 2 years ago, we were on a quest, the same people that are driving this boat, we were on a quest to eliminate the funding of WVU and Marshall and really cut, were we not?
Yeah, you were.
Big time. The very first low-hanging fruit, guarantee to you, the very first time we're upside down, it's going to be cut higher in. That'll be the first thing that goes. And then who knows what else. And we believe there's always waste in government, and I've tried as hard as I could, and I've done it. I've kept, for the most part, a pretty dadgum stable flat budget. And for the most part, we have reduced the number of government employees in government since I walked in the door. Now, look, one thing I can do, I'm a business guy. I got a living. I can run the store. And I have run the store. That's all there is to it. And we're doing unbelievable. Now, to me, and this may be with the exception of a couple here on the front row, but I'll promise you, who in this room is going to benefit more from getting rid of the machinery and inventory tax than anybody here?
Not us.
Me. Me. And I'm telling you, don't do it. Because it's too blooming risky, and it does the other thing that I think is the worst of the worst. It puts a stake right in the heart of getting rid of your personal income tax.
Yeah.
And every last one of us knows, if we have any brain in our head at all, that if you can get on a real pathway of getting rid of your personal income tax in West Virginia, it drives growth and more opportunity and growth and growth and growth. Now it does. It flat just does. Now, there's no way that you'll convince Jim Justice in a billion years that getting rid of your machinery and inventory tax versus getting on a pathway at least to get rid of your personal income tax, which is more beneficial to West Virginia. Now, the last thing I'll say is this. Just stay with me. I'm not against the machinery and inventory tax. It's just in the wrong place in the lineup. You see, the car tax, I want you to know, I came up with a methodology and way with the revenue department here to get rid of your car tax. It's gone. It's gone. You don't have to worry about that. Amendment 2, not Amendment 2, nothing. It's gone. I'll promise you to God above, it's gone. Because they came up with a way to rebate you back dollar for dollar and cent for cent for whatever your car tax is, and they can do it and do it right now. They can do it at the drop of a hat. And it won't take any time, it won't take forever, it will not. So Amendment 2 now has nothing to do with your car tax. Amendment 2 now only has this to do with anything. And that's change the Constitution. Give up local control. Give all the control to Charleston. Absolutely drive a stake in the heart of the PEI, of getting rid of your personal income tax. And at the end of the day, Bob Pruitt down at Marshall said it the very best that anybody could say it. And he said this to me. He said, here's the deal. It'd be like a bunch of politicians standing up here, and we say, all right, everybody give us your wallet. Give us your wallet and give us all your money. And we as a bunch of politicians will promise to give it back. Now that's it. That's just it.
Thank you.
Give us all your money and we'll promise to give it back. And you know what else? We may not even be there because politicians just come and go. Sometimes they're elected, sometimes they're not. But we may not even be there, but we'll promise you'll get it back. Now, the other thing that's to me is really bad about this is just this. I really believe, in their eyes, the car tax was a trick to take advantage of your lack of knowledge in regard to this. A trick. You may say, well, why in the world is Justice out here doing all this? Well, I'll tell you the honest to goodness truth. Now, let's again be super fair. I walked in the door, things were pretty tough. Today, things are unbelievable in West Virginia. Now, they are. Honest to God, they're unbelievable. I could just sit back and ride the wave to the end. I'm 2 years from being done and just say, see y'all, and I bet you overwhelmingly you would line up saying, greatest governor we ever had. Hands down, 1,000,000-1, greatest governor we ever had. I'd bet you anything that that's what you'd say. I can ride the wave to the finish line And that's what it can be. But you see, and I really mean this. I really, really mean this. And I don't really care what you think about this. But my dad taught me a lot of times. He said, son, if I know, and the good Lord knows, that's all that matters. See, he did everything anonymously. And it drove me crazy. I mean, because everybody knew what he was doing. But, you know, he'd give gifts to everybody coming or going and everything else. And he never wanted anybody to know he did it. Well, they knew it anyway. But he believed wholeheartedly that if he knew, and the good Lord knows, that's all that matters. Well, in my situation, I know what I'm about to tell you, and the good Lord knows. And that's all there is to that's all there is to this one thing. I truly believe in my heart, hands down, the good Lord made Jim Justice for a reason. And I'm sitting here right now for a reason. And I really believe he made every one of you who you are for a reason. Now, and in my world at least, I think that if I go hang out on the beach or hang out chasing the grouse around all day, every day, it's all I do, he looks back at me and says, I blessed you beyond belief, and I'm not happy with you. And that's the end of the story to me. And that's why I'm here. I'm here for one thing, not to ride the wave to the finish line and not have you stand there saying he's the greatest of all time. I'm here because we're about to make the god-awfulest mistake in this state you could ever make. We're about to really screw up. And that's all there is to it. We should be thinking first and foremost about Toby and Edith. They're out there dealing with $5 gasoline and big time grocery bills and who knows what else. We need to help them right now. Absolutely, to me, what this needs to happen is get rid of the car tax tomorrow. That's gone. Okay, next thing is get on a real pathway. Get the smart people in the room, get on a real pathway to get rid of our state income tax, or at least get us on a pathway to showing the outside world we're doing that. And every time we do it, we're putting more and more and more money back in your hands. And you know what you become? You become our own stimulus package because you'll spend it. You'll spend it right here, right here. If we do this machinery and inventory, there's a bunch of gigantic companies that are from out of state that will take that money and put it right in their pocket, and you'll never know about it. It'll just be gone. So in other words, where am I? I'm here. Now I understand. Get rid of the car tax. Get on a real pathway to get rid of the personal income tax. And then, if things are good, reach back and get rid of the machinery and inventory tax. I'm there. I'm there. I'm not opposed to getting rid of any tax. But I'm just telling you what you're doing is you're risking the farm here. You're pushing everything all up there and saying, I'm all in. Because if a bump happens, you're toast. You're toast. And higher ed would be the first shot. And beyond that and everything, there's all kinds of issues. On top of that, we're not turning to you first. You have literally pulled the rope every day. For God's sakes, a living. We've got $1,308,000,000 surplus in the state of West Virginia, and we say, well, we're going to give $254 million back to the people, and we say, nope, we're not doing it. And we're Republicans of all things. And on top of that, we want to take away local control and put it in Charleston, and we're Republicans? You know, I don't get it. I don't get it. So with all that, I'd say to you just this. If you, and then I'm getting ready to stop, then I'll answer any question I possibly can, or they can answer, or whatever. And then after all that, I'll even sit here if you want to come up and say hi to Babydog. And she'll sit there too. You know the neat thing about this, and I say it all the time, and I don't know how the message could ever be better. She makes you smile, and she loves everybody. Now just think, doesn't matter rich, poor, Republican, Democrat, black, white, doesn't matter. She loves everybody. Now, if all we had to do in life is make others smile and love everybody no matter what, wouldn't it be one heck of a lot better world?
That's what I do every day.
That's right. There you go. There you go.
I do
That's
it every
great
day.
stuff. That's great stuff. But let me, I've kind of lost my thought, but let me end. Okay? Let me end by just
Don't
telling you.
answer questions.
Yeah, I will. I will. But just let me end by just saying just this. If you believe what I'm telling you, then you're the disciples. And you got to get to work. Because there's big money and ads and everything else that's out there. And you better tell your in-laws and outlaws that they better head to the poll and vote no for this. Or you know what you're going to do at the end of the day? You know, it's going to pass. Jim Justice is going to make a pot full of money that he's telling you don't do it. And then Jim Justice is probably still going to make it the next 2 years without anything just completely blowing all to pieces. And then Jim Justice is going to be done, and Jim Justice is going to see you at Walmart, and he's going to look right at you and say, I told you so. Jim Justice can't lose in this. There's no way. If this goes up in flames, it'll be the greatest thing in the world for us. If it doesn't go up in flames, I told you so. All I can do is come. All in the world I can do is come and tell you, you really, really got to really be careful here. Because there is a real, there's a thing floating around now. Well, I know what we'll do. We'll just get rid of all of it. Car tax, machinery and inventory, personal income tax. We'll do the 10%. Now we're up to $800 or $900 million. Well, you can bet when that happens, the surpluses will go shoot. And then all of a sudden, if we have any bump in the road, next thing that's going to happen, and it's going to happen, God be my witness, it's going to happen. You're going to go to Charleston wanting to get your money for your funding for your seniors and policemen, firemen, all that kind of stuff, and there's not enough money in the pot to do everything. Because we got to put $200 million in matching to the federal government to get matching funds from the federal government, or PEIs up, or pay raise, whatever it may be. Anything. Not enough money in the pot. So what happens then? We come back to you and say, can y'all make it on a 20% cut? Well, just think. Can you make it on 20% less policemen, or 20% less firemen, or 20% less services to your seniors, or whatever it may be? Can you do that? Well, everybody's always got really big time guts. When they talk about making all these cuts. But when it gets to crunch time, lots of times it just doesn't work out, does it? Because when you're doing that, it's hurting somebody. We need to be mindful of waste and don't have it, and try to cut it back as much as we possibly can. But listen to me, and then I'm done. When I walked in the door, we were so upside down we didn't even know her name. And along the way, all we could come up with was cuts. Cut. We had done that and done that and done that. And our bonds were getting ready to be derated, and everything, rainy day fund is down. Cut and cut. And then all of a sudden we realized that, for God's sakes, a living, we're cutting and it's getting worse. Well, at the end of the day, I'm the business guy, remember. And I promise you, to God above, when you get in that situation, you can't cut your way out of the mess. You have got to have growth and absolutely a combination of things. You can't cut your way out of the mess. And everywhere we went, we just drug that hole right with us. And it kept getting worse and worse and worse. So, we had real ideas. They're working. And I don't see any reason in the world why we need to step back and blow your legs off. Or blow our legs off. And that's what we're trying to do. And we're doing it for one reason. So, we can fulfill promises to manufacturers or whoever it may be, and we can hope for the promises from them for the next elected office or whatever it may be. It's really bad stuff. Really, really bad stuff. So, if you believe all that last words, then you're the disciples. And you got to get to work. Now, there was a poll that was out yesterday from Metro News, and I loved it because all I have heard is this is going to pass. There's nothing you can do about it. This is going to pass hands down. I mean, for God's sake, to live with this car tax and everything, this is passing hands down. Well, I took the car tax out of the equation, but yesterday Metro News came out with this poll. They ran it 24 hours. There was 991 people that responded to it, Now, Metro News is pretty conservative now. And you got the other side of the fence that's really lined up against this. But in their Metro News poll, how would you think it came out? 22% for Amendment 2. 14% don't have an opinion. 63% said forget it. Yesterday. Now, don't just sit back now on your laurels here and think, well, we got this hands down. But I'm telling you, go to work. Now, I'll answer any question. Or these people will. Yes, ma'am.
What plans, you said, cuts, and growth. So, what have we been playing with in the growth sector of positive tax income generation?
Well, look, I could talk for days about this. Okay.
So I have a student loan. I graduated 2017 with 2 Masters of Arts degrees, one in counseling, one in executive leadership, but there are no growth issues that I can hang into, or that would listen to a platform that I would have that would generate a lot of growth. In fact, it might even generate a new industry. And I just want to know where's the doorway and opportunity to get those kinds of conversations going, because I'm having a hard time getting it done in this town.
Okay, let me just kind of touch on just 2 or 3 things real quick. Okay.
That's all.
Okay. One is to have any kind of growth in the state. In my opinion, you had to put a real stake in the sand. We were so dead last. It's unbelievable. And that is, we said, let's make education our centerpiece. Now, we all know we still got a ways to go on lots of different fronts with education. But we had to at least put a stake in the sand and say, we're going to really try. And literally, we have really tried. And we're getting, there's lots and lots of things going on. Everybody that wants to come to a state, the very first thing they say is, how's the schools? And the second thing, right behind it, they say, how are the roads? Now, I promise you, those 2 things are the standards of life, that we got to do. Now, and I know too, that anywhere you turn, we got an orange cone somewhere. We're doing something, Now, right behind all that, we had to diversify our state. We could not just sit back and depend on coal. Okay? And so with all of that, we don't want to forget our natural resources. We want to embrace our natural resources, whether it be gas or oil or coal. My God, living, we're West Virginia. We don't want to look down our nose at ourselves, But in all of that, but look at all the other things, whether they be high tech or tourism, especially. For gosh sakes, living, I just came here to the Forest Festival, and it's unbelievable what is going on right here, right? And it's and how much potential there is right here. if you just think just a second, I went to the President of the United States and sat right in the Oval Office. This is when Trump was there. And we went through this whole program because, and I don't want to bore you to death with all this stuff. That's why I said I could talk forever, you know, but just think about this for a second. Our trees right out here clean up an equivalency to 21 coal-fired power plants a year. Now, George Clooney's sitting in California, and on his balcony, he can't see across the street because of the smog. And then it all floats this way, and we clean it all up for him with our trees. And he complains about us, you know. Well, I don't think it's fair. You know, in all fairness, too, about the arts, if you'll just think just about this, and I hope to goodness that you know our curator, you know, and Randall Reed Smith and everything, but nevertheless, the arts, we're on the chopping block like you can't imagine. And I said, no, we're not doing that. We're not going to do it. Because when you give up the arts, you're giving up your soul. And so we didn't do it. And with all that, so many good things are going on and happening. But let me go back to our trees just one second. Now, Mike and Ike, they know this 1,000 times better than I. But this thing I'm sitting on is really strong. But the carbon that this tree grew or sucked up is still in this right here. Now, just think about that. You know, I didn't know this. But it's right in this right now. In West Virginia, we cut about 1/3 of our growth a year. Our trees are growing 3 times faster than we're cutting them. And literally, we have given up, for all practical purposes in this nation, all of our cabinetry, and we still do some, don't get me wrong, we do still, or furniture manufacturing, what, and who does it all? Now who does it all is Mexico and China and Vietnam. Promise you I'm right about that. Well, if all that being, you know, what I did is I went right into the president's office in the Oval Office and said, look, why can't we create an environmental incentive that basically, and then we look at the percentage of hardwoods that we have in the state, or forested of the state. Well, in our state, 77% of our state's forested. So why can't we get something for that? Why can't we create that environmental incentive? Because we're cleaning up everybody's junk. So why can't we get that and say, the percentage that every state's forested, that's how much they're going to get off of, you know, the labor that's going to go directly to labor of any product that's made out of hardwoods. Now the other thing is this, if you want to talk about greenhouse and all that kind of stuff, when we cut a tree, we load it on a truck, and it goes, for the most part, it goes to either a dry kill or it goes to the port. And so as it's going to the port, those emissions are going right up in the air. And then when it gets in the port, it loads on a boat, and it's going to Vietnam or somewhere, and the emissions are all going up in the air. And then when it gets in Vietnam, they make something out of it. They put it back on the boat, emissions up in the air. Then it comes back to Norfolk, and then they put it back on a truck, and then they send it to Macy's, more emissions. Well, why can't we just make all that stuff here? Why can't we be competitive here? Because we can't be competitive with labor. That's the whole deal. But that incentive thing would cut 77% out of our labor, and it would make the furniture and cabinetry industry of the United States come right back in our lap. There's so many things like that are going on. We say, well, why don't you do them all? Well, here's the thing you got to think. We've created tens of thousands of jobs. We finally got growth happening in West Virginia. We're finally fixing our roads and doing all kinds of stuff. We're now diversified in so many better ways. We got all kinds of stuff happening in tourism and everything. And you say, well, why haven't you done the furniture thing? Well, for God's sakes, Linda, you can't get to all of it. We're trying to get to all of it. But the other bottom line is just this, if we in West Virginia today, compared to the West Virginia 10 years, 20 years, 100 years ago, today we're a different animal. Today we are creating opportunity. and we are respecting the arts, and we are doing stuff with education, and we are doing stuff for our roads and our seniors and our vets. We are doing stuff. And literally, if we don't just get in our own full way, it's just going to keep on getting better and better and better. So I really think that there's a lot of stuff happening right now.
It would be helpful to put a list of, these are the things you can do to pay off your college loan, slam, 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 you know? Because I've got a college loan to pay for those 2 masters. I'm 67 years old, and I want to make that happen. So there's got to be a way to make it more public what's available for people that have loans to do.
Well, I get it. Mike, what do you got, sir?
Jim, I thought you'd say something about hardwoods today. We got with us a representative of the largest barrel maker in the United States from Kentucky. No.
I'm Jeff Lewis from Independent Stave Company. We're interested in finding a location to build a mill somewhere in West Virginia.
White oak.
Say what?
Looking for white oak.
Yeah, gotta have white oak. Yeah, there you go. There you go.
West side of us.
Well, you know, it doesn't, I promise you all across West Virginia, we have great hardwood, white oak populations. Maybe not the greatest right in this area right here, but that doesn't mean there's not many areas in West Virginia that you need to be right here. So that's really good.
One dynamic peppercorn in the education sector was when you were talking about putting coding into pre-K.
Right. Okay, now, hold on just a second, because there's lots of people.
I know, but I'm just saying, that would be the fastest way to get the education thing into here.
Okay.
Well, I'm happy you're getting quarter H in.
Okay, well, that's right. You know, I really believe quarter H, there's the most important artery that we've got in the state is finished quarter H.
Yeah.
The second most important, in my opinion, is the Coalfield Expressway, because you got to bring the southern part of the state. I mean, that's their opportunity to bring them into the state almost. Yes, sir.
Chris Michael, Tucker County Assessor. I just read where West Virginia's going to get $750 million a year for the next 5 years.
Right.
In that big federal thing. Is it possible there's a chunk left in there to finish quarter H over in Tucker County?
Now, I'm not the highways guy, but I'm always involved in the highway stuff. I kind of hate to just jump out there. Dave, do you know anything about that?
I just know about the grant.
Okay, well, I know about the grant too. Okay, but basically what you're saying there is there's a promise of $6 billion from the federal government with a matching that is going on right now from the state. That matching of the state is we have to put up $1 billion, and the federal government throws in $6 billion, and that's $7 billion. Well, $7 billion would finish every single thing there is in the state, period, hands down. But irregardless to that, you know, what we're doing is literally, and highways people, folks know this from me 1,000 times over, we're trying with all in us to make massive progress in quarter H every single day. And it's really happening in quarter H. And so it's the most important of them all. It really is. It could bring so much more opportunity and growth into this state. It's unbelievable. The most important of them all. Yes, sir.
Yes, Governor. Dana Booth, I'm with the City of Billington and also the Barber County Economic Development.
Right.
And we've experienced something even in our own county, along with economic development. The funds come out of the state agency from Charleston, and our funding for the economic development in Barber County is less today than it was 10, 12 years ago. This is an example of what's going to happen. If this gets passed, we're at their mercy. And if the monies ain't there, we're hurting. If they are, fine. We have no guarantee. And I just feel that this is an example of what's to come. If we have a state agency, whether it be the legislature or the state agency funding the money, we're going to be hurting. And I have to vote no.
Well, That's the reason I'm here.
Supporting you.
I mean, that's exactly why I'm here. And I tell you this, you know, you gotta, you know, and I don't want to get into all the politics, but Robert Carnes and I talk lots of times, and he's a sharp guy, and he's really and truly, we're kind of in lockstep on one thing. We both really believe that getting rid of our personal income tax or getting on a pathway of doing that will drive real opportunity to all of us, you know, and I can tell you that that my feelings are just so simple, and that is just this: is if we can't be, please forgive me, but we can't be naive enough to just sit idly by and say Charleston's going to take care of us no matter what. That Charleston's going to always be better than you are going to be. Gosh almighty, I mean, who are we kidding? You absolutely know what's going on in your backyard better than Charleston will ever know. Why are we trying to do this? We're trying to do this so somebody can get up on a soapbox and say, I got rid of your car tax, elect me. Now that's why we're doing it. Because honestly, whomever that somebody is, lobbyists have courted them and got them obligated to the lobbyists, and they can't get away from it. Now that's what's happening. Literally, ask Robert, they wouldn't even let Robert vote. The Senate has not even voted on a proposal that would have put money right back in your hands. Because the leadership won't allow the vote. You know, it sounds like I'm just throwing rocks at people, and I don't mean to do that at all. As far as I know, these are good people. I don't need to throw rocks at people. God knows I would rather be doing a billion other things than being here with you right now. Even though I love you with all my soul. You know, but I am telling you that I am right about this. I am as right can be. You're selling your soul because they hoodwinked you into believing that you'd get rid of your car tax. And I cured that.
Good.
I mean, I flat called their bluff on that. Yeah.
So the car tax is gone. As of this moment, there is no car tax.
No, here's exactly the truth, okay? I have a bill that's written. It'll be the first bill that's sent to the legislature when they come into session in January, early January. The first bill is completely written. You can go online and get it and everything. It's completely done. And basically what it does is just this. You pay your car taxes normal, and those dollars still flow to the county. So the county doesn't lose any of the control, doesn't lose any of the services. And through the general revenue, the bill basically says the minute you pay your car taxes, we're going to refund that back to you dollar for dollar and cent for cent. Okay? So that's exactly how that will happen. And it will happen quickly, very quickly. This man will tell you, 87% of you are doing this electronically anyway. But it won't be a delay. It won't be anything that they want to hide behind and everything. But do you really believe? Now, one thing I believe with all my soul, and it's this right here. First of all, if you vote for Amendment 2, and they want to get rid of your car taxes, then there's going to be a constant food fight war going on between the House and the Senate. And then it's got to come to me. And really, it may be forever and a day getting rid of your car taxes if you were to pass Amendment 2 and if that's all we had in the world. But the one thing that you can count on till you know where it freezes over, and it's this, is if you send a bill to the House and the Senate, and it says all of you are going to get rid of your car tax, and absolutely the dollars are there to do it, and all of you are going to get rid of your car tax, and we're not going to take any money away from the counties, there's not a living, breathing one of them that will vote against that. Because if they vote against it, you'll run them out of office. you'll run them out of office. There's no way. So from my standpoint, the car tax now is off the issue. The issue now about Amendment 2 is, do you want to change the Constitution? Do you want to give up local control? What do you want to do? And so that's the very best I can do. Now, if the Senate and the House leadership were to come to me tomorrow, and say, you call a special session and we'll pass your rebate thing tomorrow, I'll put it there to them in 3 days. 3 days. They won't do it. Because they're still clinging to the fact that you'll go to the poll and be dumb bunnies and you'll vote for their Amendment 2 and then they'll take control. But they'll have to do it when I send it to them.
Governor, Phyllis Yoakum, Randolph County Assessor. The rebate on the car taxes, is that an income tax credit, or you're actually gonna get a check back in the mail from the state?
You got to answer.
Check back in the mail.
Check back
Get
in
up
the
here and
mail?
answer that. Get up here.
That's the answer.
As the governor said, and this
Simple
is
as best.
an interesting fact, 87% of people already are filing their income taxes electronically.
Right.
So you'll have two options. One is you can go on a portal and go to My Taxes on the state website, submit your property tax receipt, and you'll get a dollar for dollar refund either electronically or by check.
Okay.
Or if you're a person that doesn't like to do things electronically, you'll have about a one-page form to fill out that you can mail in.
I've had
Same
a lot of
result.
people already ask me that.
Yeah,
question.
it's a refundable tax credit. Even if you owe no income tax,
Okay.
you still get the credit. You
Okay.
get the money back, even if
Go
you
over that
owe no
one
state
more time.
income
Even
tax.
if you don't have an income tax.
Yeah,
You're still gonna get dollar for dollar and penny for penny back.
and
But
that's,
you gotta file the tax, right?
you
So
got,
if you don't file taxes, like you don't make enough income.
no, you just go on and file the one little form. That's all you have to file, even if you don't
What's the
need to
name
pay.
of, the number of the form?
Well, the form will be on My Taxes.
Okay.
Yeah, when we roll it out, it'll be called a portal, property tax refund portal.
So
You
it
go
would
on
have
there.
to be done on the electronic, so.
You can do it
somebody that doesn't
electronically,
have a
or you can do it
computer
with a piece of paper.
That
Dave,
doesn't know
Dave,
better, they're
Yes.
not
For
gonna
those
get
that
the
don't
check.
file electronically,
Do it with a piece of paper.
That's,
individual,
Yeah.
and the refund come back to the individual.
Comes back to the individual,
In form of cash or tax credit.
comes back in form of cash.
okay, so it's
Yeah.
a formal,
Everybody
it's a
doesn't
formal
have.
process.
And to give you some information, that's $127 million statewide that'll be going back in everybody's pocket. On top of the $271 million for the 10% income tax credit.
That's if they would pass that part. Now, not the car tax part. They'll pass that in a second.
The average car is $225 per vehicle. We actually did a calculation statewide. Now, those of you that's got fancier vehicles, be more, but the average car in West Virginia, $225 a vehicle.
Thank
It's
you.
starting in 22 tax year?
When's it effective?
It's effective upon passage,
No,
so,
but it goes back to January of 2022. So you get it for this past year.
yeah, it would be, yes.
You get the rebate for this past year. Yes, sir.
It would be what you paid on September 1st of this year, 22, and then, yeah, you see what I'm saying? Okay.
Yes, sir. Wait just 1 second, please. I'm sorry.
Eric Spencer, Barber County Assessor. So the refunds that people will get back from their car tax is gonna come completely from state funding, right?
That's right.
Okay. So now if there's a bump in the road, like we were talking about, and I think all of us believe that that will happen, is there something in the piece of legislation that makes accommodation for that if the state gets into a pinch down the road? Has that been, is that something that
Well,
the rebates could stop in the future if we get into bad financial trouble, or?
well, we gotta go a long ways to get in that kind of financial trouble. The 800-pound gorilla in the room is the machinery and inventory stuff, but we gotta go a long ways, from $1.3 billion down to $130 million. We gotta go a long ways to get to there.
So we're projecting this as sustainable then for the.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
definitely.
And you need to probably say something about that.
Yeah. I mean, $127 million is a lot of money, no question. But within the scheme of the state's budget, our revenues last year were approaching $6 billion. So it's a lot of money, but within the scheme of the state's budget, we feel very comfortable signing off on that number. And that also applies to the $271 million personal income tax cut. Same thing. And keep in mind, and it was mentioned here by Ike a few minutes ago and Mike, we have the Wall Street bankers sitting on our shoulder all the time. Because our bond rating is excellent, AA stable. So we're very careful when we do financial planning to be sure that we're not doing anything to harm the foundation of the state's finances, and we're not.
Because like Phyllis had mentioned, we've been getting some questions in the office about these proposals.
Sure.
So I appreciate that.
No, and I want to comment just 1 second on this. On the, all I'm saying to you for absolute, that with all the confidence in the world and absolute as much certainty as I know I can tell you other than a meteorite hitting you, is the car tax thing is off the table. Now, beyond that, what was going to happen with the income tax, the 10% income tax, the 200, what Dave says is 271 million and all that kind of stuff. I hope to goodness that we can get on a pathway to aggressively accelerate that even more than the 271 million, but that we're not talking about today. We're talking about your car tax versus Amendment 2. A car tax is gone. If a car tax is gone, then really and truly what you're really talking about is just one thing, and that is, is local control versus Charleston control. It's absolutely trying to some way, somehow, take care of and not just stab a stake right in the heart, in order to help really a bunch of great big corporations that a lot of them are out of state. Yes, sir.
Governor, can you put that in your speech someday and let the whole state hear it, what you just told us?
Listen, it's been live streamed everywhere right now. Every one of my briefings, I'm saying the same thing. I'm going all over the place. This is the 17th place now that I've been, and telling everybody, I really don't have a format that I can just go on, like a evening chat, and tell everybody, but I am saying just the same thing over.
Hey, Jim, let me take a little smoke off of you. 6 years ago, I met this man, and I've been here longer than he has. Been through a lot of governors, and I've seen good times, and then I've seen bad times. When he come in office, it was bad. I probably had one of the first fundraisers when this man was running for governor. And whatever he's done with me, I've had a great relationship with him. He's done probably 10% of what I've asked him to do, but the door was always open. And if we're talking about credibility here, people, if he hadn't told it here today and you don't believe us here what he said, God help you.
I believe what he's saying, but I wish the whole state could hear what he said.
Well, if you look what's going to happen here in such a short period, I'm taking the smoke away from you, but it's a short period of time before it's going to happen. The vote's coming, and I want to tell you, thank you for showing up today and showing up every time I get a chance to see you. And you are a great governor.
No, you were. I know exactly. You were saying, it'd be great if the whole state could hear the message. I heard that loud and clear. The only other thing, now Ike didn't tell you the truth about this. He said I only did 10% of the stuff that he's asked for. That's a lie. You don't do 10% what Ike's asking for, or he'll be after you and after you and after you. I mean, I've done 99.99. No, honest to God, he's the greatest. He's really good.
We'll be going through you from now on.
But he's tough. Now he's really good. But I mean it, and he's right. He had one of the very first fundraisers for me. Didn't hardly know me at all, and we've become really, really good buddies. And Ike and Mike, I think are running the world of them. Mark, you know, like I said, is doing an unbelievable job, you know, and he always has. I mean, gosh, I go back 5 million years with Mark. That's always to it.
Sir?
Yes, sir.
David Keeson with Randolph County Commission. Just want to thank you for coming to Randolph County and sharing this information with us. And to let you know that our fellow commissioners, Chris Seiler and Chris C., we voted months ago in passing a resolution in our opposition to Amendment 2 and sent it to the legislature. To let you know that Randolph County Commission has your back and Babydog's back on this.
Babydog gives you a high five. Okay, now wait just a second. Let me see if there's anybody else. Yes, sir. Hey, Rob.
Thanks, Governor. Just real quick, I want to touch more on something rather than a question, but about this local control and whether the state can give the money back. It's kind of a question and so on. And one of the reasons why I've switched on is because I voted to send Amendment 2 out. But I just haven't seen the responsibility that I thought should have followed Amendment 2. But on this question of local control, the difference is if we do this backfill plan, and then down the road, I believe there'll be times when we cut. And that's just a given. That'll absolutely happen. And then you guys at the county level are finding yourselves having to cut spending for law enforcement, for example. You're going to catch all the blame for that, but it'll be the legislature that has cut your budget. But you'll get the blame just the same as you oftentimes get the blame for roads that you have nothing to do with, right? On the other hand, sort of what you're talking about with your plan says that even if later down the road this rebate can't be done, well, who's going to catch the blame for that? It'll be the governor at that time, the legislature at that time. It'll be the people who's actually not performing on the rebate, or if they have to raise some other tax, it'll be the people who directly are raising the taxes or not doing the rebate will be the ones that pay the political cost. That's us in Charleston. And so for me, you know, this could have been done so much better, but it just isn't, and so I can't support it anymore. And I want to thank you for coming out, and you know, we've met in several of these meetings, and you know, I'm hoping it goes down to defeat, even though I send it out of the Senate, because I just don't see what we need to do to make this work.
Well, y'all ought to clap because it always takes big man to stand up, doesn't it? It really does, in big place.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
I heard you when you first came in say that that wasn't on the ballot yet. When will it be, or will it be a special ballot?
No, it'll be on the ballot November the 8th. Amendment 2 will.
So you can't do early voting and have that?
Yeah.
No, you can do early voting and have that. Yeah.
It's on the early voting.
Yeah, it's on your early voting thing. You got to vote no. I mean, no. Okay. Yes, sir.
What does the car tax actually go to? What does it pay for in West Virginia?
What's the car tax go to? Maybe.
It depends on the county, because some counties have excess levies, but as a statewide average, and Mark, you and I were talking about this coming up in the car, 2/3 of it goes to the schools, and 1/3 of it goes generally to the operation of county government. Now that can vary from county to county, but as a statewide average, it's 2/3, 1/3.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Governor, you may have already mentioned this, but should this go down, the Plan B, or did you mention what a Plan B would be if, as far as cutting taxes?
Well, here's the thing that I would do instantaneously. You know, if this goes down, absolutely what should happen in our state is literally the smart people, the really, really, really smart people that are in Charleston, because those are the lawmakers. We've got to get together immediately, because we have real surpluses, and we got real people that are really hurting right now. Okay, now let's just think about this just a second. What if we could get on a pathway? If we had the machinery and inventory tax, that wasn't at play. Car tax is. If we could see our way clear to do the 10% in the beginning and the car tax, and that would be the first thing that happened. Okay, the 10% in the beginning of the personal income tax is gone. So your personal income tax is going to come down 10%. Okay, you're going to get that back in quarterly checks. So you're going to get it back instantly. okay? Now, the other thing that's gonna happen is right with that is this. If we didn't have to do the machinery and inventory right off the get-go, we could go almost to 30%. Now we're really making something. We're really making hay now. You know, so now what we got is your car tax gone, and we may very well be on the pathway to get to a number like 20 to 30% of your income tax cut right off the get. When that starts happening, then the outside world is going to really believe they're really doing it. They're really doing it. And at that time, they're going to want to come to West Virginia and live. And then all of a sudden, not only that, you've got your own stimulus package going on because you're going to be spending that money and putting it back to work all over the place, but you got people now moving. And all the different things that we've got in place, I mean, my God, 11, the roads, everything we're doing, tourism, everything under the sun now gets magnified over and over. And before you know it, we spin around 9 times and we find a way to get us to 50%. And then we get us to 70%. And then all of a sudden we're really there. And so that's the whole plan. The plan has got to be just one thing alone. Get rid of the car tax. My God, living, that's nothing. Get rid of that. Make that gone. Okay, that's gone. You don't need to worry about that now. That's gone. Now, but right behind it, what we really need to do is just what I said to Robert, and I believe in wholeheartedly. We need to go right at the personal income tax. If we go right at the personal income tax, there'll be more people come to Glenville State University. There will be. God, they'll want to live here, guys. You know, absolutely. You know, every public tax publication in the land. I mean, why in the world do you think Tennessee, Florida, Texas, South Dakota, all these places are growing like crazy? Who in the world wants to go to South Dakota? But it's growing like crazy. You know, now, and all these people are having to drive right through us to get to these states like Tennessee and Florida and this stuff. I mean, look, I may look like Yogi Bear and you know, and everything, but honestly, in this is right in my wheelhouse. I got this. I know what we should be doing.
Done, we're waiting on.
It says, this is on quarter H. We're waiting on clearance from Fish and Wildlife on Wardensville to Virginia Line and Parsons to Davis. Looks like February for Parsons to Davis. So we're making real headway on that.
There you go, Cameron.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So we know how the Small Business Administration, a small business is defined as 100 people or less.
Right.
And we know that in order for a family, for me, to live on the mountain, I would like to be able to have a micro business that would feed my family. And I would like to find a way to make micro business association a thing, because the Small Business Administration doesn't work for the micro business.
Okay.
And I was wondering if there is a way to create an association just for the micro business, because that is where we're going to get our growth, because every family makes a decision to do something, is going to grow their own income in their own way if we can create that kind of a step to start with. Because income, family income, being self-sufficient is and you can do it by community block. Self-sufficiency in the community is not even talked about, and it's something I've been dreaming about since I was a little kid. And I just,
well,
I heard that there's something talking about micro business. Is there anything you can add to?
I can't, but I can assure you that
We can take your name down and have our commerce folks that specialize in this call you. Be glad to do it.
anybody else got anything?
Thank you, Governor Justice.